What's up, everybody? It's Chad. I'm back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. Gino over here got jokes. I'm joined today with Bart and Jason. Now, today is a different kind of episode. Normally, I have one guest, or even if I have more than one guest, they're from the same company. These two gentlemen are not from just two different companies. They actually do two different things in the industry. So we're going to get into that and some other stuff too. So thank you, gentlemen, for both joining me today.
Thank you.
Of course. And I'll give you guys a chance to introduce and everything. We're usually I spend most of the 30 minutes of the first part of the show on my guests and everything. But if some of you who are watching aren't from New Mexico or, unaware, we had a huge flash flood in Ruidoso, which is about an hour and 45 minutes from me here in Las Cruces, and about 40 minutes from my hometown in Alamogordo, and wiped out a lot of the city. Buildings were floating down the city. We did have some people pass away, unfortunately. A bunch of people lost pretty much everything they had. So we're going to get into that conversation and talk about it more because the cannabis industry is directly affected with this. So, and Jason himself, and you guys will find out here soon. So we'll get into that. But gentlemen, thank you again. If you could, Bart, go ahead and introduce yourself for me, for my listeners.
My name is Bart Day. I'm the owner of 42 Days. We are a cannabis manufacturer for the state of New Mexico.
Nice. Oh.
Yeah. Pretty simple. Like, we're a level 4 cannabis manufacturer, which there's not a lot of us. We produce every product out there except for edibles. We don't make any edibles, but we have flower, distillate, wax, rosin, every product possible without a kitchen.
Nice. Yeah, the kitchen part gets kind of a pain in the ass. I understand.
It's expensive.
yeah, definitely. Well, if you guys didn't know, I've actually known Bart for almost 10 years now. And then back in the day, he was applying to get a cannabis license to be a producer. Back when medical days, we didn't have any licenses open. They opened it, that pretty much one time, and he applied. I was actually on his board. Unfortunately, he didn't get selected, but you didn't quit, man. Like I give you props. Like from that time to even, now, like you're still getting it, like you did not give up. So I give you props for that.
Do you know why I got denied my license?
How come?
Because I had a felony on my record. So everything in my license was perfect. And I hired a team of attorneys to get my record expunged because I did prison time over cannabis. Mm-hmm. And my record was expunged the day after they closed the applications. I still submitted my application and then submitted the background check a week later, and I was still denied because at the time of the application process, I was still a convicted felon.
That's such horseshit. The bureaucratic
now,
bullshit.
Right?
Yeah. So who knows? Everything happens for a reason. You're in the industry now, and who knows? Maybe things may have not worked out in a different way back then, and maybe now is the perfect time.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. So we'll see. But Jason, thank you for joining me. Could you give me a good introduction? I know they're actually at his dispensary right now in lounge.
Yeah, we are filming live in my cannabis dispensary lounge here. I'm Jason Hixon. I'm the chief of operations for the Greenery Room.
In Ruidoso.
Yeah, in Ruidoso, New Mexico. We're located in Midtown, where we're filming right now, where we operate the longest operating cannabis lounge in New Mexico. We've been the longest continuously operating cannabis lounge. Chad, you visited our lounge before. I've had you in here. We have a good spot in here, and we've been open since day one of recreational sales, and we unfortunately did lose our Alto location to the fire last year, but we have rebuild coming up very soon for that, hoping for late September, early October for that to be fully built out again for there too. So keep an eye out for that there. But yeah, always new things coming up here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, always something going on in New Mexico. Well, thank you both, gentlemen, for introducing yourselves, give us a little background. Like I said, normally I would dig into when'd you get started, this and that about the business and all that. But I'm gonna address the elephant in the room, and let's address the whole Ruidoso situation and everything. Within that conversation, we get to talk about your shop as well, but unfortunately, it's not like in the best light to talk about things. So as I said before, at the time of recording yesterday or Tuesday, there was a flash flood in Ruidoso. There's been, heavy rains and stuff happening. It even rained here in Las Cruces. It wasn't supposed to. So, it was kind of just a freak storm. Kind of what happened in Texas the other day as well, too. That was very, very unfortunate what happened over there. Heart goes out to all those people affected. But in Ruidoso, unfortunately, they had a flash flood. And I think you gentlemen were telling me last year that the flash flood kind of started slowly and then built up. And this year is kind of just a big wall, right?
Well, the flash floods, unfortunately, so last year we had the fire, and then unfortunately, fire often is followed by flooding. And we had our normal, monsoon season, like it hits almost always in July, like usual. And when it hits, what we're looking at actually yesterday marks about the year anniversary for a lot of those. I think the highest flood that we had hit about 15 and a half feet last year at the high. And then yesterday, in Hollywood, they marked it at 20 and a half feet about. So significantly higher than it was last year. So we're looking at quite a bit more flooding devastation than was last year. As far as the locations that are mostly being affected, it's largely like Ruidoso is here. It is open. It is, it is safe largely, but it is one of those things that I urge anyone that's coming to visit Ruidoso to just be mindful and aware of how water operates in flash flood scenarios, and because a big part of the recovery effort is going to have we want people to visit. We need customers, and a large part of Ruidoso's economy is based on tourism. We largely have a tourism-based economy here, and unfortunately, with the closing of the racetrack, again, it was a total loss out there. It looks like the track will be closed for the season. The meet was canceled that was coming up this week, so that's unfortunately a very large draw of tourism here, and with it being closed, we still definitely need people to visit. So I've seen a lot of people online, and there's a lot of information saying that Ruidoso is being swept away and that it's basically being wiped out. It hasn't. It's your areas that are by the river. Unfortunately, Ruidoso is built largely against a river. It's in the name, and so it is living up to that. As far as a noisy river goes, it is definitely living up to that. And so, but largely, those flash floods are quick. They happen quick, and if you pay attention to your warnings and be mindful of them, you'll be safe and fine. But just be aware of where your surroundings and be aware of what you're doing. Stay in places that are high ground, and when your phone says get to higher ground, get to higher ground.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
I came in this morning and I felt completely safe. They had already cleared off the roads. So I'm surprised at how quickly they're acting this time. Last time it was a little slower rebuild, but a lot of the businesses that were impacted are already, their parking lots are cleared out. They're already cleaning the buildings. It's going very quickly. So
yeah.
I think people should feel safe coming up here, and they should still come and enjoy it. It's actually pretty green up here right now, so it's kind of a good place to be right now.
Yeah, largely Midtown is
safe,
unaffected.
Yeah.
Largely unaffected. So, and Ruidoso is largely unaffected. As long as you're mindful of where you are when the monsoon, pay attention to the weather. You can't just ignore it when you're up here right now. But other than that, Ruidoso's open and operating.
Yeah. No, and that was, pretty much the same thing last time. People were like, no, please show up. But then you had, I saw some other people from the community. They're like, no, don't get up here. And they seemed more in the minority. And of course, these were people probably just, trying to express how they're feeling in a certain way. Maybe they're just grieving. Maybe they were severely affected, and that makes people react in certain ways. But if you are planning to go to Ruidoso, still go, please. That will help the community rebuild. I get it. The racetrack isn't there, but there's other things you can do in the area too as well. You can even go check out Jason's Lounge and hang out for a little bit. Help them out, because I think did your shop get hit at all or anything in your area?
So fortunately, this round we were spared. being where we are located, we are in the Midtown location. We're up high. We're well above the river. The water didn't come anywhere near here. As long as it doesn't overtake the road itself with so much rain, it's fine. The drainage system's held up largely. There was some shops in parts of Midtown that did get some water in them because it was coming down so aggressively. And that's just mostly like that classic, like heavy monsoon rain, and less of like the rushing floodwaters from just, overwhelmed water channels. That's what the damage really comes from, is those walls of water, these 20-foot walls of water, because that's essentially what happened. Is out of the blue, within a matter of 6 minutes, the river jumped up 20 feet.
That's crazy.
So there's a lot of footage out there. There's trail cams right there at the river mouth where you can see where it happens, and it's intense. So, the thing to keep in mind though is that we still have a lot of our monsoon season left. We still have about another month left, give or take.
Yeah. Are there any efforts for anybody for donations? If anybody watching wants to donate, maybe send clothing or food or items that they need?
There is actually. Now, I will always say that, make sure that you're checking your sources when you're donating. Sadly, during times of tragedy, oftentimes you'll find people, taking advantage of that. Yeah. But they're accepting donations at the Humane Society resale shop, the Angus Nazarene Church, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then right now also, I believe the Gateway Church, they're doing like clothes and shoes. And so, there's already stuff, but usually, and I know it's hard sometimes to hear, it's usually the best thing if you're able, donate money to a good local charity. The Lincoln County Rescue Fund, I believe, is the name of the one that I would recommend. I can get the exact name for it. But we have a local one that works really, really hard to help and keep that money locally and give it to people that need it. So just really pay attention to who you're donating to, and just, stuff like that before you do so, because unfortunately, stuff like Red Cross and stuff, most of that money doesn't make it to us when it comes down to it. Most of that money doesn't end up to where you think it will. So you're doing a lot better to donate as close as you can to the situation. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you for that, by the way. There's one thing you want to keep in mind is, nonprofits doesn't mean they don't make a profit. It's just, it's a little sneaky way of getting around it. So don't think that just something's called a nonprofit that it's 100% charity. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's the big scam when it comes to it sometimes, where like 80% of the funds will go to be paying their CEOs and other people, the board and all that, and very little goes to the actual cause. So if you can, please try to donate as locally as possible. I do know last time my parents still live in Alamogordo, and the Knights of Columbus and Alamo were helping out as well too. So if you're in Alamogordo in the near area, see if they're taking donations to take up to the area. I know they help out a lot. So if you guys can, please, by all means, and if you can volunteer, if they're asking for volunteers, please, by all means, go up there and volunteer, clean up, whatever, that everything helps. So, it's an unfortunate tragedy that happened. It hit Ruidoso hard. And don't worry, Jason's got a business to run.
We are in a working lounge. Yeah, there's people coming in and out. It is a working lounge right now. Yep.
Yeah. See, so there's proof right there, guys. That the town isn't dead. It may have a boo-boo right now, but just like last year, they are going to rebuild. The tragedies happen. We can only just react to them, and try to prepare for them as much as possible. But really, reactions that no, man, you got a business to run and you're still busy, so that's good.
Yes.
I was surprised at how busy Midtown is today. The center of Ruidoso is actually really busy today. It looks like there's still a lot of people here, which is a good thing. And my social media blew up. On my way up here, I drove up here and posted some pictures, and everybody was like, "Why are you there? It's not safe." And I just want to reiterate what Jason said. It is safe. A flash flood is just that. They usually last moments or hours. The river right now is only ankle deep.
Yeah. And that's normally where it's at anyway, you know, like, so
Yeah.
people, you understand that it's back to where it was
It's
before
already
the flood.
back.
Yeah.
Everything's drying out. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, there's, if y'all ain't from the desert or from the area, you know, flash floods, they happen fast, they end fast, and they dry up quick. It's just the damage that they created is what's left behind. Unfortunately, most of the time. If something's in the way, it's not like it reaches out and grabs things a mile away, you know, if it's in the path kind of situation. I think sometimes people think that, like, when a flash flood happens, it's just covering a whole area, a whole city, and then like staying there forever or something. But that's not the case. So have you guys seen anybody that has been affected by this with their business so far in the cannabis industry? The dispensary growers or any of them?
So I haven't spoken with them yet, but I can tell when I drove by that it looks like elevation 6420. It looks like their building was damaged pretty badly. They're right there on the river, and I could tell that it looked like mud had gone all the way up to their steps. I have a feeling it was inside. I know it punched through. It looked like the back of their museum back there. So those guys are going to be needing some help. We're going to have to, you know, it's going to be a uphill battle with, I know how hard it is with the recovery side of the coin and, you know, dealing with insurance and all the other stuff. So I wish them nothing but the best. I know that's going to be a lot for them. So, you know, and if they see there's anything we can do to help, you know, please reach out.
I talked to Sydney, who's the manager for Elevation, on the way up here, and her and her family are okay, which is important. All of their employees are fine. Their building does have quite a bit of damage, but the actual dispensary floor is okay. So yeah, it came up right that they're in a 2-story building, and it came up to just below the 2nd story, which is where the dispensary is located. So
that's scary to hear.
Right? Yeah.
Holy shit.
And the other thing is that they're already 10 feet above the river. They're not right on the river. They're 10 or 15.
They're barely.
They're 10 or 15 feet above the river.
A little bit above,
But and then, so it was their 2nd story is where the dispensary is located, and it is largely okay, and they will be open pretty quickly.
That's good.
The museum won't be open anytime soon. They definitely have some rebuilding and they need to do some work to the building, but they're only going to be able to do that if the dispensary stays open.
Yeah. And was any farms affected at all? I mean, I don't know of any that are along the river, but you know,
I haven't heard of any of the grow operations here. There's not a lot of grow operations in the Ruidoso area. There's a handful, but
Virtuoso is okay.
Virtuous is okay, you know, and he's up there on Gavilan. And I don't know about, you know, Daniel with Altitude Aromas up there in Alto. I haven't heard anything otherwise, but I believe they're fine. I don't believe they were close to the river.
And I talked to 2 other growers also that are also perfectly fine.
That's good. I talked to Gator from Monster House. He's fine. I didn't really get an update on the building or anything. I don't know how that looks.
They're okay. I drove by there, and Monster House is in good shape. They're ready. They're good.
That's good to hear. And then
the guys that, fortunately this time around, the guys at Z's Bud Board, you know, they're okay this time around.
Yeah, Z's.
They were like their new location was largely spared of any wet. You know, they're in a good spot now. So it seems like, fortunately, because it's like, man, not again, right? But
they were spared. I feel like it was pretty close.
Correct.
Yeah, it was pretty close to Z's. For the people that don't know, Z's Bud Board was a local dispensary with everybody being well loved in the community, and they lost their entire dispensary on the last flood.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And Jason, I know you know how that feels, losing the Alto location. You know, it's probably just gut wrenching. You know, just like you know, and it's not like there's anybody you can get mad at. You know, it's nature. You know, we're living in it. And, you know, so it's, you know, it's an unfortunate situation to, you know, for the community, you know, the cannabis community in general. I'm just glad that, you know, most of the businesses were spared. You know, and it's unfortunate for the ones that were you know, affected by it. And I hope it doesn't take them out completely.
I mean, I'll say this, we're a pretty tight knit community here. Even in the cannabis industry, we're all pretty, friendly. There's not a lot of at least in my situation, I don't have any like hard feelings against any single industry or dispensary in town. We all have a pretty open relationship with each other, and everybody's cool. And I don't want to, I think we all want to see each other do well, but we have a lot of each other's back. Like Ruidoso is a strong community.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah. And I was just going to say, I hope the community can really, band together and really help everybody rebuild. If it, like I said, if you're a bud tender at a competitive dispensary, go volunteer to help them clean up. There's nothing wrong with that. A little bit of humanity never kill anybody.
They seem like they're pretty good at that. And to that note, like Ruidoso is one of my favorite towns to do business in because of that. I can walk into one dispensary and talk to a dispensary owner who is rooting for the guy down the street.
That's good.
And
That's cool.
I see it almost, it's really cohesive here. They're rooting for each other.
We're a small community.
Yeah. It seems like the smaller communities are, minus Sunland Park, are, a little more like that. They're a little more tight knit. Sunland Park's a different animal.
Let's be real here. Sunland Park's not a community. Sunland Park is a parking lot full of weed stores, and and then there may be a grocery store.
It's like a mercado. That's about it. Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel, Jason. Tell us.
No, and I say it all the time. The Sunland Park market. That's the Texas market. It's not even the New Mexico market.
Yeah.
But one thing about Ruidoso though too, largely is a lot of Texans do visit Ruidoso, and that is heavy. The populace, what is it, like 40% or something like there has a house in Ruidoso, or some 25%, some crazy number.
West Texas, yeah.
There's a significant population of Texas visitors that come to Ruidoso and spend either part of the year here or vacation here. Many of them do, many people own a second home here, whatnot, especially with the advent of Airbnb. It kind of changed the way that whole market works,
Yeah, I bet. Because I remember people used to just rent out the cabins, that was pretty common. But with B&B, it's whatever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. It made it so Ruidoso doesn't have like a tourist season. It's like any time is free time. Any time is a good time to come visit, and which is good. It's great in a lot of ways, but I do have concerns about the way that works, especially with recently how much housing issues we have here now, with how many homes we lost in the fire and then the floods and all this. So it's like housing becomes tighter and tighter, and Airbnb always is a sticky subject that would be best kept to a completely different podcast, I'm sure, quite frankly.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, this isn't the B&B podcast either, so don't worry. But yeah,
words, man.
Yeah, that's a total different, and it's something evolving even more. We're just figuring it out. How big this thing is. So yeah, that is a conversation for another day. But that it does vastly affect the area, and who knows? Maybe something like this will make the city realize, well, maybe we need to change some things to maybe help with this issue. Who knows? I don't know what that solution or what that may be, but who knows? That might come from this. Just looking at the brighter side of the situation, I guess, on it, even though we'll see. And only time will tell, really. But I'm glad that, your business is good and everything. And, thank you for sharing that, Ruidoso is still alive and well, and there's still people showing up. And for the Texans who do watch my podcast, I actually have surprisingly a lot of Texans that watch my podcast. If you guys are planning on going to Ruidoso, don't cancel your trip. It's still open. If you so happen to lose the place that you were going to stay at, maybe try to look for another spot. Hopefully they give you a refund. That's just unfortunate. I don't know if that is or the case for some people, but please, still show up to Ruidoso. That'll help the rebuilding, because we all love going to Ruidoso. Like I said, I'm from Alamogordo. I grew up going there in Cloudcroft my whole life, fishing, hunting, hanging out, sports, the whole 9 yards. So my heart goes out to Ruidoso, and I care much about that place. It's very beautiful, and we need to protect it. And people that are there. So
I think that for the most part, most of the people in New Mexico and West Texas already feel some sort of affinity or ownership over Ruidoso. for all of us. It's a safe place. It's a comfortable place to go.
Yeah, it's like a little place in New Mexico that isn't New Mexico that everybody can just like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had friends that were like stationed in Washington, be like, man, this kind of looks like Washington, and I'm like,
Almost.
it's like a Colorado in the middle of New Mexico, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
we are unique. Yeah, Ruidoso is beautiful and unique, and we're fortunate to have what we have, and that is something to say. Like, we still have lots of wonderful stuff in Ruidoso that you can come see, even if you're just used to coming to the track. There's lots of fun stuff to do. So.
Yeah, there's way more. So I appreciate that and everything. Well, before we move on to our next topic and everything, for the for the podcast, is there anything else you guys want to mention, say, or add to the conversation?
Come up and have fun. Support these guys.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Come see me. We'll take good care of you.
I know it, man. And it's a lounge too. You get to go and smoke and hang out. Actually, go check out the. What's up?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can give the elevator speech though, but like I said, we're the longest operating lounge, and we definitely want to make sure that you have a good time here. We try to take good care of people. Nice and air conditioned. We got air filtration. We've got everybody gets a clean piece. Every time you use a device, it's cleaned immediately after you use it. We have a well-trained, dab tenders with our dab bar. We have, a little bit of everything. So it's a good place to come and experiment and have a fun place where someone will, take good care of you. And it's a great vibe. If you like going to a bar, but you don't like to drink anymore or something, it's like a great alternative instead of going hanging out at the bar. It's always a significantly more mellow vibe in the lounge. It's never rowdy. So, it's a very chill vibe.
And
Yeah,
also,
definitely. And
this lounge particularly, there's almost always somebody in here every time I come. Almost every single time. This is not a lounge where it's just empty. There's almost always somebody in here to visit with and talk to.
Yeah, and I mean the phone's been ringing the whole time, so I mean you guys stay busy, so that says a lot. The time I went there, I had a blast. I took my girlfriend, and what's that room? Do you guys have a name for that room? That white one with all the cool art and stuff on the wall, and all the it's kind of like a funky room.
Just the room.
Yeah.
Or which room? Which room?
Now, I think you're referring to Nomad.
Oh, Nomad. I went to like a bunch in one day, so I was like jumping around.
I remember you taught me at the end of your trip.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
You were running through and trying all the lounges, you said that day.
Yes, we were. So we went with my friend. I had her on the show. She goes by Canna Room Adventures, and so she was taking a group around to the different lounges in the area. And I was like, yeah, I'll go check it out. I haven't been to some lounges over there, and I was glad I got to check them out. So yeah, my apologies for mixing those up. But yeah, that's one of the things that I remember. But yeah, check it out. It's rare to see that many lounges actually in one area, because here in Cruces we have only two. We're the second largest city in the whole state.
Right.
So it's weird to see, Ruidoso, which, has a way less, smaller population than us, and they have like what, 4?
But we swell. I think the reason that we have so many lounges is because when you're in Ruidoso, you're here to relax. You're here to chill. You're on vacation mode, and I think the village was smart to let a lot of lounges pop up, because obviously there's always the worry of like fire danger, and there's always the worry of like people smoking in public and families in Midtown, and losing that family-friendly image that Midtown has, because with Midtown it is for everyone. Like you can bring your family down and have a day of it, but we didn't want I don't think they wanted people to be out there. There was always the concern of like, oh, if you have a bunch of cannabis dispensaries, people are just going to be smoking on the streets. It's going to get like Las Vegas. Like people are going to be crazy out here. And I think that having so many options to give people a safe and legal place to consume the cannabis resolves a lot of those concerns, because now why would you want to be out on the street doing it when you can hang out in an air-conditioned lounge with snacks and drinks, and I got sports on the TV, and I got it's a very fun place to be. So it's a no-brainer as far as like why would you break the law, go hang out on the highway or on the road outside when you could just come hang out. So I
definitely.
think plus a lot of times people are staying in Airbnbs and things where they specifically aren't allowed to consume cannabis on site, and so giving them opportunity to go do it safely. A lot of Airbnbs I've learned have put my flyers in their little place saying like, hey, just go here to smoke instead. So so I appreciate them. If you're an Airbnb operator and you did that, I love you.
Controversy aside, you're dope.
That does suck about Airbnb. Whenever I go to an Airbnb, it's hard to find one that allows us to smoke cannabis.
And so I think because of those factors, the lounge ecosystem in Ruidoso makes a lot more sense because, it's more of an attraction type of thing. It's a one-of-a-kind experience you get. You can't go everywhere and have this sort of situation. Many places just don't have it. So especially not like this.
No, 100%. I was blown away at how many there were and how well you guys are doing and how well they're set up. Because I've been to some and I'm like, ooh, this is a dive bar. Right. Kind of feeling. I was like, ooh. So going to lounges that are set up well. The bud tender I did visit at your lounge, she was great, man. Knowledgeable, super nice, very catering to us and everything, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, that was Gabriel. I remember Gabriel. He handled you. And, Gabe's my guy, man. Gabe's one of my top dudes. Like 100%, yeah. But he's just an example of what we try to like. I think all my guys, everybody I've got working for me is incredibly solid, and they all give me their best. I want to shout all my guys out because we struggled through this crap, man.
The struggle never stops, man.
As have we all.
Exactly.
It's been a fight.
But I think you gave many people around the state reasons why they should have a lounge in their city too. And it works well in Ruidoso, but even if you have one in your city, I think that's great because we all should have somewhere safe we can go and consume. Be it if you live in public housing, in a rental you can't smoke in with your parents, whatever, you should have that safe space. So I think you gave some really good reasons for people to think otherwise. So I appreciate that.
Of course.
Cool. Well, with that being said, we're going to end it on a good note of the conversation, and we're going to move on to the next conversation for the show. And it's going to be about the DEA. And I know we love talking about the DEA and hear about those assholes, but it's not going to be a good reason why we're hearing about it today. So the reason why I'm bringing it up is because they're supposed to update us on this whole rescheduling thing going on that President Biden initiated and was supposed to continue on into the next administration. Well, that was put on hold earlier this year. And then during that hold, the judge said he was supposed to get updates every 90 days. Well, the last update we got 90 days ago was pretty much everything we've known now. And I pretty much updated everybody since then, but it was pretty much, we're going to put it on a pause. We don't know when it's going to happen. There's a couple other stipulations, of course, that 90-day update thing. But that was pretty much all that came from it. Now, we got an update the other day, but it was the same exact one from April. So now the DEA hasn't updated us on anything at all. And another thing that's weird is we have a DEA administrator who's supposed to be getting pretty much confirmed in his position, but it hasn't happened yet because Congress is taking forever. So like that guy's in limbo. So the guy that's in there now, he's not doing anything. The problem with the new guy is he pretty much has the Nancy Reagan mindset of just say no. So I don't know if he's going to be any help either. So what's y'all's thoughts on this whole thing going on with the rescheduling process with the federal government?
I think that with the outcome of the election, I pretty much gave up on it being rescheduled until the next election.
That's fair.
And,
yeah.
And our next update might be the same update we just got with a different signature and a different date. And I don't expect that to change with the administration that we're currently in. And that's just the bottom line. The good news for us is that we don't have to worry about the impacts of that, right? For me, one of the scariest impacts for me being a level 4 manufacturer, I can manufacture every product, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if they deschedule it and I want to get into the big box stores? So if, let's say, and this is just a challenge that's faced, let's say I want to go to Walgreens or Walmart or one of these other locations, my entire facility has to get FDA approval.
And possibly DEA.
And DEA, which the DEA approval is a lot simpler than the FDA approval is.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the DEA approval is mostly paperwork. The FDA approval is meeting FDA guidelines on the build out. The sinks have to be the proper size. There's so much involved in meeting the FDA criteria that for us, I think the estimate from my attorneys and contractors on it would be about $450,000 to upgrade us to FDA standards.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm okay with it being the status quo right now. I don't want any criminality. I mean, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, I had to go to prison for cannabis, you know. I
Mhm.
don't want to be faced with that, but at the same point in time, I know that I don't have the resources to compete on a global market, which is what cannabis will become overnight. It will happen
Yes.
overnight, and
Yeah.
without a couple million behind me, I won't succeed at it.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're spot on with that. And I've told people
Right.
this many times that the retail, the dispensary only model, that's actually a dying breed because once either federal decriminalization or something changes federally, that's going to start phasing out because you're going to see it at Walmart, Walgreens, gas stations, movie theaters, sporting
Yeah.
events above high school. You'll see it everywhere.
Right.
And the need for a dispensary is just going to plummet because look at how many liquor stores we have in New Mexico. Here in Las Cruces, I think we have like one. And to be honest, the service that it does provide is giving you specialty stuff, specialty item things. And I kind of feel that's going to be the future of the dispensary. Now, the consumption lounge, I think they'll be fine. You know,
Yes.
they're already in their little niche area. That's not even retail. That's like a customer service kind of hospitality kind of thing. It's straight hospitality, actually. So you know that you don't have to worry about that because it's not even retail. You know, as long as you're hospitable and you're providing a fun experience for people, they're going to show up. But the retail guys, oof, they're gonna be hurting. They're gonna have to figure out how to go from a retail to a distributor. You know, they're gonna have to
Right.
figure out how am I gonna get my products like yourself in Walmart, in Walgreens, you know, maybe in Allsops. I don't know. You know, depending on product or the way the rules and laws go bit then. But
Right.
right now it's a ticking time bomb when it comes to retail. And you know, I'm with you on that. With you know this not happening, I'm kind of like good because the 2018 Farm Bill, yeah, it created this thing with CBD or whatever, but it caused so much confusion. Like, oh my god, like even now we separated the plant. We said, okay, it is now hemp if it's under this magical number, and we're like, well, okay. And then we're going to get this rescheduling thing where it's going to say, well, now it's medical as long as we call it medical. And it's going to have this different rules and different laws. And it's going to be controlled by a total different entity than hemp and the cannabis that's controlled by the states. So we're
Right.
going to have like 3 different industries for one plant. And so I'm kind of hoping that this kind of goes away and then we get a push for decrim. Because the way that this one's going, because even during under Biden, they found that the DEA was using, you know, non-legal practices and working with anti-cannabis groups and stuff like that. And so, you know, that's been exposed now. So even then, you know, it was going to be a slim chance and it was being fought against us. But definitely the administration that we have now didn't help. Because, you know, time and time again, they've just shown us that cannabis is not a priority. They don't care. And to be honest, they're probably not going to do anything about it.
Well, until we have a system in place that makes sense and keeps those of us that began here the ability to stay intact, I'm okay with the status quo. Like I said, I don't want to change it. I know what the risk I take now is every day, and I know what the reasonability behind that risk is. I don't know how greater the risk is with rescheduling, because do I lose everything? But also then I also get to go to a bank, right? A bank will fund me on the money. Maybe I apply for federal grants that I get. New Mexico has those, but not on that level. So I'm okay. I know what the risk is today, and I'm okay with it today. Yeah.
But the unknown of the uncertainty of it, because even then when they started this process, the federal government was updating us like, well, actually, guys, this won't be the case for this because of this whatever bullshit law that's in place and in the way. So even then it was like, well, shit, we're not even getting what we think we're getting now. Like, well, you know, we're gonna have to figure this out. And I kept telling people this. I said the government doesn't even know how to go about this, guys.
Right.
So like the government is figuring it out as we go. They have no clue.
As does every government that has that has gone through this. Every single one of them has gone through the same challenges that we face in New Mexico.
100%. And, you know, growing pains are a real thing, especially in,
Yes.
you know, industries like ours. We're
They're
about
real.
2 years away from, you know, being considered a mature market. And to be honest, I think we're on track to becoming a mature market. Not only just the industry, but the people within it. You know, we've learned a lot. We've grown within it, and, you know, we found our niches, and now it's just time to grow, you know, and to kind of continue on. So, Jason, how do you feel about this whole DEA stuff going on?
I have always largely been quite suspicious over any sort of move that the federal government wants to do. And I feel like it is a method to steal cannabis from the people. I feel like as far as like, it's already kind of like, you know, naturally when you have recreational market, you do see some of the focus shift from patient oriented to customer oriented. And, you know, a recreational customer can be a patient, but it's not always that way. And then I feel like what the federal government, if they get too involved in this, it's going to be a way for them to, you know, give it back to their pharmaceutical friends, give it back to their buddies that have deep pockets and can absolutely just, like Bart was saying, just smash anything that looks like opposition by just completely drowning them. So, you know, I am very dubious, and I'm pretty happy that they've kind of thus far drug their feet. I would rather them just kind of not get involved in it, because I feel like the less involved they are, the better, quite frankly. So.
Yeah,
I agree.
Until it makes sense. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to continue. I mean, any step that we can take for all of us to feel reasonably safer is a good step. I'm just not sure that rescheduling makes any dispensary owner or any manufacturer in the state comfortable.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the producers, between Walmart and Walgreens, they probably have enough money to come in and buy all the cannabis in the state on the same day.
Yeah.
And
you know,
I don't necessarily worry about big box retailers coming in and ruining it. I truly do worry more about, like, you know, pharmaceutical companies coming in and opening patents and controlling things and making it behind a restrictively expensive, you know, system to prevent access and essentially stealing it back. Like, I worry that they will use it as a way to steal it from the people, you know?
Yeah.
You know, just truly.
I was using those names as pharmaceutical companies, not as their retail sides, just their pharmaceutical.
It's true.
Their pharmaceutical sides, I think, are the ones that would do that. I was using those names as that example.
But even as a big boxer, you know, you got to wonder, you know, someone like, you know, you have your legal industries that have maintained, you know, legality in the eyes of the law, you know, tobacco and alcohol, obviously. Not trying to get anybody shot here today, but you know, those guys, they're not big fans of doing. They would probably, you know, be a big fan of it becoming federally decriminalized and or controlled under, you know, a different method of sale or something, so that they would, you know. That's just my tin hat theory on the entire situation, but I've always been rather distrusting of that sort of thing, you know.
Cannabis people distrusting of the government. Weird.
That's crazy.
That's new.
Usually love the man.
Yeah, that is so new. I've never heard that before, man. That's wild. 60 Minutes needs to do a story on that new theory.
We'll call it 120 minutes for that episode.
We need time for this one. No, I'm with you on that. You know, I'm prior military. I was military intelligence, and, you know, while I was in the military, I realized how much they don't care and how much they lie to us. And so once I got out, I was just like, okay, you cannot trust these assholes at all. And time again, they have just keep proving it to us that we can't trust them. And, you know, especially on this process. I mean, even when we had a cannabis friendly president, the DEA was still doing shady stuff with anti-cannabis groups, you know, like
Right.
it was still going on. They were still hindering us. I remember during the process, people sued because they weren't inviting pro-cannabis people to the hearings. It was all anti-cannabis people, like
Right.
no matter what. And like, how are you supposed to expect us to trust you when you do stuff like that, you know? And like, yeah, I am scared of them coming in and either rescheduling it, whatever, and making it good for the friends and keeping the regular citizens out of it because
Yeah.
only pharmaceutical companies are qualified to make medicine. You know, like I can hear them giving us that excuse, you know, when it comes to like a Senate floor.
Well,
But that's not the case.
Mexico right now has a $50 million a month market.
Exactly.
And it is our people's market. It's our market.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
We have to give a big portion of that up. And I'm not willing. I'm not sure. I'm personally willing to give it up for a little bit of safety. Again, I already know what the risks I'm taking are. I'm comfortable with them, and I know what I'm up against. The thought of losing my business and losing my life savings just for a little added security probably isn't there for me right now.
And some of it is just peace of mind. It's not even something that's
Yeah.
really going to save or help anybody.
Right.
You know, and that's the unfortunate part, you know, like, and I say this all the time to people, you up security, you lose freedom. You know, and the opposite happens too, you know, like you can try to find a balance, but you do more one or the other and you lose the other. And for
That's
me,
correct.
I would rather have more freedom than false sense of security. Because a lot of the times that security is just a false sense of security. It's not a
and I
real
know that's
security.
what it is. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
So
Yep.
yeah, so I appreciate that, the conversation on that, gents.
Yeah, and
because
I mean, I'm old school. I've been at this for a very long time.
You guys go for it.
I started
No, not for something.
I started growing in 1990.
yeah,
And I was in Humboldt County before it was ever legal. And I saw DEA agents come in on helicopters and down ropes at my neighbors' properties or across the valley. It was something that I saw over and over and over. It was a part of my life growing up in this industry, I guess.
yeah, and you know, it only slowed down what, a decade ago or so, because even in 2010 they were raiding dispensaries left and right.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, they were shutting them down, and even in as late as 2013, I saw. Now, granted, these guys were not doing anything legal, but I did see the DEA come in and take a 20,000 plant grow across the valley from me. I could see their grow from my grow, and across the valley they came in and took it all down in an afternoon, and that was in 2013.
Yeah. So yeah, the back then they were a lot more aggressive. Let's just hope. You know, I'm hoping that it doesn't ever get back to that point. You know, I hope. I don't either. But you know, the hope is still there. You know, and I hope it continues to just leave us the fuck alone. For
the most part, yeah.
The Homeland Security, that's a different story. DOJ, they're mostly hands off, but Homeland Security's been fucking with us a lot. But I appreciate you, gentlemen, on that conversation and everything. Yeah. We're gonna move on to the final conversation that we have today. And this one kind of plays into what we were talking about a little bit earlier too. So we'll jump right into it. So an MSO, or you know, a corporate company in Michigan, they're actually shutting their doors. So you know, it shows you just because you're a big company or whatever doesn't mean that you're going to be here at the end of the day. I don't know what their issues are internally or whatever, but the name of the name of the company is TerraSen Corporation. They'll be sold and divested according to the company announcement. So they're going to have 4 cultivation facilities shut down. I don't know how the plant count works in Michigan, so I don't know how many plants that is. But 4 facilities is quite significant. And I believe about 200%, about over 200 of their employees will be put out of work. So that's the most unfortunate part when something like this happens. So like when I hear that, I just think of the people that are going to lose their jobs over something like this. Like, yeah, people cheer when the corporate companies go out of business, but I'm like, well, you know, hopefully those people that lost their job can hopefully find a new job within the industry or something soon.
So were they just a large company inside of Michigan, or were they multi-state?
I believe they're multi-state. And I think they're leaving Michigan because of all the issues and stuff like that. But I'm not too sure either, because the articles I read were kind of vague. You know, I had to go through a couple of them to kind of get more information. I'm like, man, you guys are kind of vague over there. But they also ran the cookies in Michigan. So that's going to be one of the stores that's shutting down is cookies. So they had the contract with that, which makes me think that, yeah, they most likely an MSO. But yeah, it's going to be that. And I think like 20 dispensaries. Yeah, they had 20 dispensaries under their business license. So those are going to be shutting down in Michigan. And Michigan is having its own issues right now too. They're having growing pains. They're dealing what we're dealing with like, too much product in the market. I don't know if they have a fix within their law like we do. Our issue is that CCD just isn't implementing it, and they refuse to because they're afraid of getting sued again. They're afraid the growers are going to sue them because of the plant counts. I'm like, well, look, dude, the growers should have known that their plant counts change if they have anything other than a micro license. It says it right there in the law, and when you get your license, like this plant count can and will change. So like I really don't get the fear. I'm like, let them sue. That's what the courts are there for.
Right.
Like, well, let them sue. You're not paying for it out of your pocket.
Well,
so
and then they have a precedence for the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We have something for the future. Exactly. And we get the ruling on that, and it's in concrete.
Right.
And that's where we got, tax-free cannabis. That's where we got, workers' comp has to pay for your medical or reimburse you for your cannabis. That's where a lot of that stuff came from too, is lawsuits. And I tell people this all the time. The legislature writes the laws, the courts interpret. That's the way it goes, and that's what we should be using. So anyway, going back to the MSO guys and everything. So this just shows that, regardless of the size of the company, how much money you have, it doesn't mean you're going to make it at the end of the day. There's so many factors that go into the cannabis industry, especially state to state, that it's a crapshoot. Like you could be a tiny company and then turn into a big one and do great. Or you can be this huge company and end up having to close your grow down and start growing tulips because that's the only way you know how to make money. Growing cannabis can be easy, but growing good cannabis, that's when it gets difficult. And Bart, I know you know that yourself.
Yeah. Of course, I grow really good cannabis because I've grown a lot of bad cannabis.
Every good grower was a very shitty grower at one time.
That's exactly right. I started growing a long time ago, so I learned a lot of lessons. Now all I have to do is just not fuck up, right? Like as long as I follow my policies and I do what I do, I'm going to produce a quality product. But going back to MSOs, I don't think that the size, especially in the legal market, in this market, I don't think the size of your company is ever going to dictate your success.
Or the growth.
It's just not. One of the biggest challenges we face is funding. I don't care if you're an MSO, you're still not going to a bank for a bailout. You have to find private investors. The larger you are, if your success isn't there, the easier it is to lose it, because you have to mainly find private investors, and the challenges associated with finding those and getting through that vetting system to get that money. If you're an MSO, that's a much bigger challenge than it is for a smaller person. So I think it just shows that our industry does not discriminate about that.
No, and it shows how hard it is to scale cannabis. Once you get to a certain point, it's almost impossible to get a very good quality product. Like 20,000 plants, I can guarantee you a team of 10 people isn't touching every single plant every day. There's no way. There's no way. And you should be touching every single plant every day.
My rule of thumb is 20 plants for one person.
There you go.
20, but that's on a large outdoor crop. On an indoor crop, that's different. Yeah,
definitely. And there it is right there. That's another thing people don't put into consideration. Indoor to outdoor, your scales are different, and your methods are different, and everything. And so, that's something I've noticed is, you look at these huge, massive grows, especially the ones that have tanked the prices, they're not growing quality, at all.
Right.
They're growing affordability at that point,
Well, and the outdoor crops are unique because you start the season with 2 employees, you end it with 60.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. The work gets harder as you go on. You're right. Like at the beginning, like, oh yeah, just leave it alone. It starts to flower and then starts to fall over. You're like, oh shit, I got to prop this up and check it every day.
What that means is that you have 58 people that don't know what's going on because only 2 of them started it.
Yeah,
I face
100%.
that. I understand it. I know what it is. Yeah.
Jason, what is your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think you're never too big to fail. In this case
100%.
specifically, or in this industry, I should say. Like, as much as, I mean, we've seen it here already with other companies that are beloved, but it seems like if they either mismanage or they can't keep up, they will get left behind. And there's no love in the industry when it comes to that stuff. Is what it. I mean, people. It sucks to hear, but you see it happen in many other legal states. It's nothing new, and it's going to continue to happen as long as the industry operates in the way it does. Especially Michigan, it seems like they have they have a very high tax rate. They have, which is really, as far as like a retailer goes, taxes are always the bane of your existence, having to constantly juggle your excise tax, your state tax, your village
just
tax.
went up here.
All that stuff, and that's I guarantee that that comes into effect there too, where you start getting these massive tax bills. You start getting these massive massive inventory debts, and these, especially the larger the company, the bigger the inventory debts. So I feel for the people that lost their job. I really do. I don't really feel like there's a lot of soul in those massive cannabis companies, though. I don't feel like they have a lot as far as like to offer the entire industry as far as a positive go, while customers like them because they can usually beat everybody in price, So I think, though, that can only take you so far ultimately. Like, I think the cannabis industry is a fickle one, and once you lose a customer, it's really hard to get them back. And so
it is,
because especially in New Mexico or other places like Michigan, where they have so many, where there's so many options. If you're not absolutely performing at your peak and providing 100%, you won't make it. And I have a feeling that. I don't know much about the company, but I have a feeling that if you dive into it, you'll find that there's all sorts of problems, and this goes deep. Like something like this doesn't just happen overnight. This is something that happens from gross mismanagement from the top down.
100%.
You were right, Chad. Sustained growth in this industry is one of the hardest challenges, and managing a lot of these businesses die in trying to sustain growth. My biggest challenge right now is that we are growing at an exponential rate. I've been around since the very beginning. I was issued the 4th license in the state. My sales over the last 6 months have increased 20% over the previous month, every single month. Well, that's a good problem to have, you would think, right? But it also means we're cash strapped. How do I continue to scale up while I'm waiting for the money to come through the door from the last 10 orders, and waiting for, I need supplies and equipment to get the next 10 orders out, but I don't have the money because my money's tied up in the last 4 orders, that like scaling in this industry is hard. And if you're not smart about how you scale, you can get as big as you want and then find out that you did it all very wrong from the beginning.
100%. And the way that you do it may not be the right way for someone else. You could
the
give
way
them.
I'm doing it is not the right way. I don't suggest anybody do it the way I'm doing it, because I've learned that. Again, I have a successful company now because it wasn't at the beginning, right? I've made enough mistakes. I've put enough low quality wax on the market. I've hired the wrong people in the wrong places. I've already made all those mistakes, but the good news now is all I have to do is don't fuck up, because because my product is a high quality product. And to the larger stores, and like you were saying, the degradation of the quality, I would think that any of these MSOs or any of these larger companies, that they probably got big by working on their craft, right? And that's what I do every day. Every day I try to interact with the plant, I try to interact with the equipment and come out with something new and unique that the consumer may not have seen before, or bringing back a product that they haven't seen in a long time, you know, for nostalgia purposes or whatever.
Yeah.
But once you start to get so big, if you lose that part of the cannabis industry, we're all hippies at heart. Like the craft behind it and the artistry behind what we do, it matters.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, as you scale growth, it's easy to lose track of that.
It is, you know.
Yeah. And that's that's truly what I'm finding out in reverse. When I went to market, I put a bunch of bulk product out that worked in other markets. It didn't work in this market. I vastly underestimated the needs of the New Mexico market. So I had to go back to what I did from the very beginning when I was filling PVC tubes and open blasting out a butane, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Go back to the basics.
Right. And so all I did is I started interacting with the equipment, I interacted with the plant, I interacted with my staff, and we're coming out with some really, really unique products that do have a craft feel and a craft mentality behind them. And now that I've made all these other mistakes, I know that I can't lose that.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. The craft has to stay where it's at.
And craft is the backbone of our industry here in New Mexico.
It is.
You know, I can't speak for other states, but I hope it is. But here in New Mexico,
obviously it is in Michigan as well.
You're right. Yeah, that is true. They have a lot of craft over there too, and that's one of the things I did read when I was researching this story. Is that the craft is one of the things that's kind of holding them together. And to be honest, that's the way it should be. You're gonna have the cheap stuff, of course, but you should have a lot of craft too. Have the options, really good stuff where people really took their time. Because if you look at the craft beer market, that just exploded, and now that's what a lot of people drink these days.
It used to be 8% of the market. Now it's 32%.
Thank you for that statistic. Yeah, that is massive.
It's huge. It's huge.
And it's probably only growing more and more every year too, on top of that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Budweiser bought a bunch of them the past 10 years. They bought, so now they're all owned by InBev and Budweiser.
That sucks. But let's hope that doesn't happen with cannabis.
Seriously. See, that's what I'm worried about, man.
I am too. So only time will tell.
Yeah, we're a community of people. Cannabis is more than just a product. It is a community. You know that better than anybody, Chad. You're so well known in our community. I think Jason is really well known in our community, and we identify with that community.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you for that. And that's the difference
once we get away from that, we're going to have a lot less success. Yeah,
I agree. And hopefully we continue on with the community thing that we have built through all these years, because cannabis is different. It's not alcohol. Hopefully we do continue the strong community we have here, and it's almost like a family. But that's pretty much all I have for this week, though, too, gentlemen. I know you guys are busy as well too. Thank you so much for this great conversation. Is there anything you guys want to say before we leave?
Come see Ruidoso. Come give these guys some support.
Come see us, man. We love it.
And also,
100%.
if you haven't seen 42 Days in your local dispensary, tell them to hit me up.
Bart Days is
have 42 days.
Yes,
if you would like to try Bart's products in my lounge, you can.
Yeah.
There we go. Dope. And those are normally things I cover, but today was such a special episode we didn't get to. But I'm glad we did at some point. Well,
we appreciate you having us on, man, and I'd love to be on again sometime.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to have you on too. We'll talk more about the lounge and stuff too, and hopefully it's a better circumstance and everything. Because like I said, my heart goes out to Ruidoso right now. And road trip. Yeah. We went to Ruidoso a month or two ago. Yeah, so we could probably go hang out in the lounge. That'd be fun.
Yeah. So come film a special episode in the lounge.
There we go. We'll do that. That sounds like a fun time. Maybe Bart will show up.
Call me. I'll be here.
Awesome. Well, again, guys, if you have any means to donate to the the Ruidoso stuff, please do. We already gave you the information early on in the episode on how to go about that. Be careful with who you donate to, because not all the time people that need it get it. Also, before we go, I want to make an announcement real quick. I'm going to be hosting the second farmers market that here in Las Cruces at the Lit Lounge. It's the Consumption Lounge here in Las Cruces. That's going to be the 12th of July, and it's going to be at 12 o'clock, I believe. And the address is 523 East Idaho. And that's obviously here in Las Cruces. So come out, check it out. I'll be emceeing. Should be a fun time. Come check out some samples. And this is where you really get to check out the craft, because this farmers market is nothing but craft producers. So come out, check out what New Mexico really has to offer when it comes to craft. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Again, it's been a great episode. You know, like I said, the circumstances are unfortunate, but I thank you so much for still showing up. And you know, we're able to show the support to the Ruidoso and everything. So thank you, gentlemen, so much. And thank you all for tuning in this week. I'll be back again next week for another episode of #Grassy Logic. I will see you guys then. All right, shoots.